Hey, all you Clovers, it's Phoebe here, and today we're going to talk all about linking and unlinking, and where it can be applied to, such as pattern outlines, internal lines, and more. So let's dive on in and have some fun while we learn. Okay, so here on my screen, as you can see, there are 4 different options. So there's symmetry, instance and layer clones, linking to pattern outline, and also the linking tool. So these are the 4 core ways in which you can link things within CLO. Basically meaning when one thing happens to something, it affects another thing. So where do we find this? That's what we're going to talk about first. Where can you find all these options within CLO? Well, a good amount of these options are actually in your transform pattern tool here. So you can find a lot of these in the right-click transform pattern tool. So with symmetry, you can get symmetry through selecting your pattern using your transform pattern tool, right-clicking, and you'll see a bunch of different symmetric options that you can achieve here. And there's even half symmetry. Also, you can achieve a lot of symmetry options with your edit pattern tool. So here, if I go to my edit pattern tool here, and I select my line and right click, I can then see some symmetric options for unfolding. So that's also there. I'm going to go back to my transform pattern tool right above my edit pattern tool here. And now I'm going to show you where you can find your instance options. So for instance patterns, which is basically an exact copy of a pattern, you can select your pattern piece here, right click, and this is where you're going to find an instance pattern option. So here's your instance pattern. Pretty simple. Also, you can select a pattern, right click, and you'll also see your options for layering clone. This is also really great. This is how, when you layer clone stuff, they're also linked together. So what happens to one will happen to another. So you can layer clone over or under. Still in my transform pattern tool. For link to pattern outline, also still in the transform pattern tool, you can select an internal line and then right click on top of that internal line, and you'll see link to pattern outline. This will then make it so you can link your internal line to a pattern outline, which is really useful, I promise. Now, moving a little bit away from the transform pattern tool, we can go to our edit pattern tool, which is right below the transform pattern tool. Here, what you can do is you can select a line, right click, and you have this link line option. So this is how you can start to link a line, by selecting a line, right clicking, and linking the line. This option can also be found when you're sewing things. So if you go to your edit sewing tool, you can also select certain sewing lines, right click on those, and hit link line. So you can get access to the linking line tool from both your edit pattern tool right here and also your edit sewing tool right here. And then through the right click option, when selecting either the line or sewing line, you'll then see the link line option. So those are all this is how you can find all of this stuff, okay? A lot of it is in your transform pattern tool. So now that we know where everything is and how to get to everything, let's talk about what they all do. And this is just going to be a quick jump through because I feel like a lot of you already know about a lot of these. So let's zoom into symmetry a little bit more and talk a little bit about symmetry. The first symmetry I have is half symmetry. Half symmetry is applied to one pattern piece, and it's when you can divide that pattern equally in half, and one side is the symmetric duplicate or mirror duplicate of the other side. What that means is if I go to my edit pattern tool and I select this point and I move like this point here, it will mirror what I do. And what happens to one side will happen to the other. How did I achieve this? Well, you can achieve it in a few ways. Let me just go back. Here, I'm gonna right click and remove linked editing. So you can always remove linked editing through right clicking with your transform pattern tool. But I'm gonna also right click here and with my transform pattern tool, and there's half symmetric pattern. So I can apply linked editing through half symmetry. Again, it's a right click, half symmetric pattern. That's how I can apply it. You also can apply it through using your edit pattern tool here, right below your transform pattern tool, selecting an edge, right clicking, and you can unfold symmetric editing with sewing. So that means like the sewing will also be symmetric. Or you could just unfold the pattern outline only. And that will unfold it. It will not create a symmetric line. It will just unfold the pattern outline. You can also just unfold. Or you can like unfold pattern outline only. That just means if you had an internal line, it wouldn't unfold it. If I unfolded like this, I could then go to my transform pattern tool, select the pattern, right click, and apply half symmetry. And then I would have these half symmetric. Just because I feel like that was a lot for a second, I'm just gonna walk through it one more time. So with my edit pattern tool, right below my transform pattern tool, right here, I can select the edge of a pattern, right click, and you can unfold with symmetric editing and with sewing, or you can just unfold the pattern, which will make a like symmetric unfolded copy of it. We'll basically unfold it so that they're equal and mirrored halves here. So I'll unfold this, but they are not linked. That's something to know. So if I move this point isn't moving, right? So if I want to have the action of whatever I do to one side automatically happens to the other, unlike this one where what happens to this side will only happen to this side, I have to create a symmetric half. To do and create that symmetric half, I'm going to go to my transform pattern tool, select my pattern, right click, and say half symmetric pattern. That is now creating a symmetric half and then making it so what I do to one side will automatically happen to the other. And those are the ways you can create half symmetry within one pattern. And it's nice because then that means like the pattern's sides, like one pattern is like each pattern outline is automatically linked to one another, which means you only have to do half the work, which is really nice. Now this symmetric copy is pattern to pattern. So this pattern is a mirrored duplicate of this pattern. So these two are mirrored duplicates of each other. Meaning, if I select this point is selected. The mirrored point, right? So if I move this, it will move. If I select this point and I move here, it will move. Same with here. You'll notice the internal line isn't moving with the pattern outline, but if I adjust the internal lines, the other one will move as well. Now, how did I achieve that? Well, I'll select this pattern piece and delete it. And with my transform pattern tool, I'll select this pattern piece, right click, and I can create a symmetric pattern with sewing, or I can just create a symmetric pattern. I'll just create a symmetric pattern because none of these are going to be sewn right now. Here is my symmetric pattern. And again, I can keep on editing it and adjusting it around. And that's how I did it. Just through my transform pattern, selecting it, right-clicking, and I can remove linked editing. And I can create any of these options. What's also really nice is you can see there's always going to be like a little light blue halo around the edge of your pattern. Hence why I filled all of these pattern pieces blue, so that you can see, I'll make it monochrome. You'll see this light blue highlight around every pattern piece that has symmetry. What's also nice is if they're two separate pattern pieces like these, you'll see that there's a little line always connecting them, telling you that these two are linked together, which is a really nice UI for CLO to tell you, hey, by the way, these are linked together. Okay, so that's everything about symmetry. There's more of it. That's mainly everything. Now, let's go to our instance pattern and layer clone pattern. You might ask yourself, what is an instance pattern? It is an exact copy of the pattern that you just selected. So I'm going to select this pattern and delete it. And I'm going to select this pattern, right-click with my transform pattern tool, and select instance pattern. There, I selected it, and it's an instance. It is an exact copy. What does that mean? When I select this point is selected. You see, because it's the exact copy. It is not mirrored or anything like that. It's a copy. So if I look at my symmetry difference, I selected this point, the mirrored one is selected. I select this one, the exact same one is selected. See the difference? The same things will happen with the internal line. You can, of course, they will move, but they won't move with the pattern outline. You can also create an instance pattern from half symmetrical patterns, right? So what I do to one side, so this is a lot of linking at once, right? So this point is mirrored to this point, but then this whole pattern is a direct copy and link to this pattern. So this is really helpful for if you want to do a lot of work really quickly, but you have two pattern pieces that you want to keep exactly the same at all times. And they can also be half symmetrical pattern pieces. You'll also see when something's an instance pattern, like so, I'll go back to monochrome, there's going to be a light green highlight around it. Also, there's going to be a green line connecting patterns that are instance patterns of one another, like so. So that's everything about instance patterns. Now, let's talk about layer clone patterns. Layer clone is really great, okay? Because what it does is, let me just delete this pattern. I'm going to select this, right-click, layer clone under. It's going to create an exact copy of your pattern, and it's going to automatically sew it for you, and it will place it for you directly underneath or above the pattern. It's really nice. Also, what will happen is if I start to edit one, the other will edit as well. This is another thing I'm going to call out again. As you can see, you can adjust and edit your internal lines, but the internal lines will not adjust with the pattern outline. Okay. You can also select an internal shape like this, and you can clone as pattern with your transform pattern tool. So I could clone this as a pattern, and it will be a transform pattern tool. This is just what I want you to know. Because you're cloning it from an internal shape, it's not linked. you're just cloning. Okay. So again, I can select this internal shape, right click and clone as a pattern, but it won't link it. If you want to link it, you have to go to your trace tool. So your trace tool is right below, and it looks like two pockets, like a pocket coming out of another pocket. I can double click on my internal line, which will select the whole shape, right click, and I can trace as pattern with link. This will then link my patterns. So if I start to edit one, it will edit the other. Now this is using the linking tool that we're going to get into a little bit later, but just so you know, cloning from an internal shape does not link them. The only way to link from an internal shape is through the trace tool. Now let's talk about linking to a pattern outline. So linking to a pattern outline. This is done using the, you guessed it, transform pattern tool. A lot of consistencies, right? Like the transform pattern tool can get you a lot of the linking stuff. So using your transform pattern tool, you can select your internal line, right click, link to pattern outline. You'll then get like a little information next to your cursor saying click on a start and end point to select a line. So I'm going to click on a start point, then click on an end point. This is then linked, this internal line, to this pattern outline. So if I start to edit this, the internal line edits as well. You can see this line isn't editing, this one, because it's not linked. If I go back a few steps and I go to my transform pattern tool, select this internal line, right click, link to pattern outline, I can then link this. And then I can start to edit again. And you'll see both of them will then follow it together. Just some things to know. Your curve points you're gonna just get a lot of curve points when they're linked. If you're like, whoa, that's what's going on, you can always select your line, right click and unlink pattern outline, and then you can optimize it. But it won't work unless you've unlinked it. And you'll always see the unlinked again in your right click. Link to pattern outline. It's pretty good. Now, we have the whole linking tool. I kind of showed you a little bit about the pocket, but the linking tool is great. What you can do is with your edit pattern tool, now your transform, the one right below transform, your edit pattern tool. What you can do is you can select a line, right click, and say link lines. What will then happen is you're going to get like some guidance for yourself. So here I have some guidance and it's showing me, oh, wow, like this is crossed. You'll also see arrows. So like this arrow is pointing up, this arrow, if I zoom in, is pointing down, right? So I'll move my cursor, now it's pointing up. I also see that these two lines are easy. I also are going in the right direction and straight. I also see that there's arrows going in for these. That means like when this one moves this way, this line will move this way. The arrows are telling you how it will move, how like the points and lines will move. So they're always gonna go like against each other, if that makes sense. They work similarly to how all of these others work, where if you move to the right, the other one will move into the left, like they're mirroring one another. Okay, I know it's a little bit complicated, but you'll get it soon, don't worry. Now, there's a few options when you've decided to link lines. You can see all your options once you've decided to link your lines through your Edit Link tool. It's right below your Edit Pattern tool. You can select it, right click, and you can unlink, flip direction, or add sewing to linking. So if I flip direction, that's these arrows right here. And what will happen is then, see, now they all move in one direction. Now what will happen is, if like I want everything to move to the right or like with each other instead of mirroring each other, it will. See how that works? That's all with your Edit Pattern tool, Edit Link tool. You can select your linked lines, right click, flip direction. The shortcut is Shift D. So if you're just, you can hold down D and like it'll start to change. You can select D, and then you can hit D again. It will adjust. When you're holding down D, holding down D, holding down D, holding down D, releasing D. So, all the different ways in which the lines can move with you in a linked way. Just as a refresher, did this through selecting a line, right-clicking, link lines. Now, you can also link multiple lines. So, let's say these two lines are meant to attach to this one line. So I'm going to right-click, unlink this. And I'm going to say this line should be linked to two lines. I can do that. All I have to do is right click, link lines, hold down Shift, and make sure they're going in the right direction. Release Shift, and then one line will link to multiple lines. And you can see how these work. And again, if I want to switch the direction, I can hold down D and I'll switch the direction of how they move. I can then release D and there's change the direction of how they move as well. I can also, through my sewing, like so, go to my Edit Sewing tool, select these, right click, link the line, like this, right click, link line, select this, right click, link line. Now all of these are linked, and so what happens to one happens to the other, right? Sometimes it becomes tricky with things like this, which is why sometimes you always want to make sure that you are smart when you're doing this. And you know like when to unlink and when to link. But you can kind of start to see the value of this linking, because what will happen is when you adjust one or another, it will automatically adjust the others, which is really valuable because it makes it so you have to do like less steps and you don't have to repeat the work you've just done. And then finally, another way to link is through that trace tool. So I can double click, select that whole pocket, right click, trace this pattern with linking, and you can see all the arrows. This is following that edit linking tool. What I can also do using my edit linking tool is now right click and add sewing to linking. And I can do that for all of this. Add sewing to linking, add sewing to linking. And then you can see that they're sewing now where it was linked. And I can start to edit and adjust together. Cool. Okay. So now we know how each section works. Let's put this all into practice. Okay, so here I have a relatively simple garment. And what we're going to talk about is a very simple workflow that I feel like a lot of you will probably get into, where linking patterns is going to help you because it's going to make it so you have less work in the long run. This is one of the most fundamental workflows there is, and it always involves symmetry. So you can always have symmetry in every pattern you have and then apply that. And symmetry is linking two patterns together through mirroring them too. So here with my pattern, I'm going to go to my transform pattern tool, and I'm first going to just select the patterns I know can become symmetric copies of it. So I'm going to select these, right click, and create a symmetric pattern with sewing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my edit pattern tool and create the unfolded half symmetry. So I'm going to just select these, all of these lines here by holding down shift, selecting multiple lines. I'm then going to right click and unfold symmetric editing with sewing. Now all of these patterns are half symmetrical. So what's the positive of doing all of this, you might ask? So many positives. Now that these are all either half symmetrical, so each half of this is linked together, so when I do what I do to one side will automatically affect the other, like so. I also then can select all of these, and adjustments in the 3D window work better. So I can turn on arrangement points, and I only have to arrange half my pattern. So this one, because I have half symmetry, is fine. But I can also then start to just arrange my front, back. I only need to select one leg, one side, and one back, and done. I also, as you know, only have to sew half. So with my segment sewing tool, I only have to sew half of this pattern. So I only have to sew half of this pattern, which is really great. I have really low particle distance on. But hey, it still worked. And if you forget to sew something, which happens to me all the time, don't forget, you can always sew it later. And again, half. So those are just some quick and easy wins that can happen because, you know, you have symmetry. And these are linked patterns. So you can edit things faster, right? You can also edit multiple patterns faster, right? Like so. But also you can sew it and arrange it and set it all up faster as well. So that is a really simple and easy workflow on how linking patterns can improve your life, right? Let's go on to something a little bit harder. So here I have a little bit more of an intermediate workflow. I have a little bit more of a challenging garment, and I already have the simple symmetry applied. So that's great. What can I do with my linking tools to make editing this pattern easier for me, so I do less work and things are more connected? Well, the first thing I can do is make sure that I have half symmetry and symmetry everywhere. So here in this collar, I'm going to select it, right click, and apply half symmetry. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to make another placket, because this is a 2-layer placket. Instead of just making a whole nother pattern and right clicking and just copying and pasting, I'm going to select this and right click and layer clone under. I'm going to do the same for my buttonhole one. Right click, layer clone under. Perfect. Now I have pattern pieces here that are layer cloned under and working really well. There are some other things you can do, of course, to make sure that everything stays like really well, by selecting your buttons and set number of sewing layers too. Perfect. Same with my buttonholes. Okay, everything's too great. So now I have my plackets and I use my layer clone under to help place those. And the next thing I need to do is make sure that this pocket is attached to my pattern and also linked. So I want to make sure that the internal lines and the pattern outlines of this are linked together. I can do this in a few ways. One, I could just have my pattern here and sew it, right? I can sew this. And use any one of my sewing tools and start to sew this around. Perfect, valid option. Then I could select my sewing, right click, and link the lines. And now I've linked them, and I can just superimpose over. Ooh, I did under, I want it over. That's why there's a gizmo tool. So now, whatever happens to this will happen to the other. See? And I'm holding down D right now so that it moves how I want it to move. So that is one way in which I can link it and create those pockets. I also could take it from the internal shape. So if I wanted to, I could select my internal lines through my trace tool and make sure this is a closed shape. Right click, trace as pattern. And then double click, right click, trace as pattern. And then I can just merge this. And again, through sewing, I can sew this together and then right click link lines. Easy, right? And then I can, of course, right click, place it on. One other thing that I would do in this more intermediate kind of workflow is I would want to probably fold back these hems and create fold back hems. So that's all with my edit pattern tool here. And I would want, let's say, a 1/2 inch. And you can see, because I have half symmetry everywhere, I'm only selecting half of patterns and everything. And this is making it so everything's pretty easy to do. And I'm gonna hit OK. Now I can just fold this back. And fold this back. And what I'm going to do with our linking is I'm going to go to my transform pattern tool. And I'm going to select both of these internal lines, right click, link to pattern outline. I'm going to link it to this pattern outline. Same with these. I'm going to select both of these, right click, link to pattern outline. Same with these. These have already been linked. You'll know because when you select them again, it'll say unlinked pattern outline or unlinked pattern outline. This is great. So if I decide that I want to like select this and move it again, my internal lines are linked, right? So really, really helpful, really, really useful. Also really helpful because then I can select this and extend out if I wanted to, or change this around. I could select this whole line and adjust, and it will adjust with it. Making it so when I adjust and move things around, everything is linked together and a little bit more cohesive. All right, that is our intermediate. Now, let's go on to something a little bit more advanced. So here we have a garment that has nothing applied. It is very difficult. The only things that are symmetrical are these sleeves. That's it. Nothing else is symmetrical. So, and I have a lot of edits to do here. This is when knowing your linking tools would be really helpful because you could either A, go about this where, okay, so I have to make sure I select every single line, move this, remember what every measurement is. So then I would have to say, okay, if I want to extend this out, right click, I know I want 0.25. Okay. If I want to extend this out, right click, 0.25. Okay. This one, 0.25. Okay. You can start to see how all of a sudden everything becomes a little bit trickier. And not so much trickier, I mean, yes, everything becomes a little bit trickier, but also everything becomes a little bit more time consuming. And you have to really know what you want before you start because you've got to know your measurements. Like otherwise, this side's going to become completely different from this side very quickly. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try to find where I can create half symmetry very quickly and easily. This skirt looks like an easy win, right? So I'm going to select the skirt, right click, and say half symmetry. Fortunately, there's something in this pattern that is not symmetrical. Not to worry. All I have to do is select this and create where I think the half is. And I'm just going to cut. Delete half of it, select the other, right click, unfold with symmetric. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're all like, that was a lot more work than what I would want to do. And that makes sense, right? Like, you're probably thinking that's a lot more work. But this is what I'd like to ask you all. What's more work? Doing this thing that's taking me literally 2 minutes, like maybe less than a minute to do in the beginning, or having to do all of that editing how I was doing it before. Honestly, I'm pretty sure this was much easier and faster. I can also just like make my life a little bit easier. Right. So yeah, I may have added half a minute on to do this, but now watch. So much faster, right? All of those edits I just did, so much faster than what I did before. And I didn't need to know exactly what I was doing. I could have just tested it out, see if I liked it, and then decided, okay, what do I actually need to do? The same I want to do for this, right? I want to right click, half symmetry. Unfortunately, again, all of these are going to have the same problem. So I'm going to just quickly go through and fix that. Okay, fix that. And now the last thing I'm going to do is for my back, select these two, right click, and apply linked editing with sewing. Same with these two. I'm going to select these, right click, apply linked editing with sewing. This option for applying linked editing with sewing happens when you already have two pattern pieces and then you want to apply the symmetry to them after they already exist. So apply linked editing with sewing. This is a little bit more advanced because somebody's probably gone in and already made a whole pattern piece for you. So that's why you already need to apply something. Now, following what we just did with our intermediate, what I'll also want to do here is create some internal lines. And then I'm just going to select these both and link to pattern outline. I'm in my transform pattern. Select these both, right click, link to pattern outline. Great. Now also, because I know I'm going to need some facing, and I'm just going to want to layer like an exact copy of this basically, I'm just going to right click, layer clone under, and put this off to the side. And I'm also going to want the same right click, layer clone under, and put this off to the side. And the same with this. Just to have a bit more stability in these places. Now for my back, I don't want the whole thing layer cloned under. I just want part of it. So I'm going to go into my internal line tool, create the shaping that I want. It will automatically apply to the other side because symmetrical. And then I'm going to trace out a pattern. Now I have this, and I'm going to sew to where I want to. Sew it to. Actually, this is good. And I can just right click, create a half symmetrical pattern, select both of these, superimpose under. And you saw that I only needed to sew half of it and set all of that up because these are linked patterns and everything. What the best part of this is now what I can do is these are already layer cloned under, right? So what I do to one is going to automatically affect the other, right? But what if I want what I do to one to automatically affect this and this and this? I can do that. I can make that possible now with my linking tool. So here I can select all of these and I can say, okay, I'm going to go to my edit pattern tool, select this line, right click, and link it with this one. I'm going to use those arrows that I have, making sure everything's going in the right direction. This arrow is pointing towards the neck opening. I'm going to make sure this arrow points towards the neck opening. Great. I can also select this line, right click, and link it with this line. Now what will happen is when I move one, these others move. Which is really, really nice. So I can adjust this, this adjusts, move this, this moves, move this, this moves. Everything's moving together really quickly and easily. Really, really helpful, right? Because they're all together and I've linked them all. Now, just know you're not going to keep them linked forever. You're going to unlink them. So now that I've done some editing, I'm probably going to go to my edit here and I'm going to unlink. This is not something that you keep around while you're going the whole time. I'm going to unlink it because I don't always want them together. And as you can see, sometimes like lines will become messy if I do. So even though like you want to link and unlink sometimes, you'll still see like how useful this is, because here, as you can see in my front, like if I want to move some of these pieces, I'd have to, if I don't have linking, again, remember exactly how much I'm going to move them. And then start to move them around, right? I'll move them up. But I could as also just select this in this line, right click, link lines. To this, right? And I can select this line, right click, and link this line. And then I would start to move them. And holding down D, I can change the direction of how I move them, right? And as long as you make sure that your curves are going in the like right way in the beginning, it will work really, really, really well. In the end, because these are linked, as you know, like they are layer cloned under, whatever I did to this automatically happened up top. And I can just simulate and see the change. which is really, really cool, I think. Right? It's the same with these skirts. I can select the skirt here and right click, link to this line, so that if I change this, it will proportionally change there and there. I could also, though, make sure that this line is linked to this line. So again, when I move this, it moves as well. So I don't even have to worry about selecting it. And because these are half symmetrical, what I do to one side automatically happens to the other side. So you can see how so quickly, once you start linking things, they all work together really efficiently, especially like half symmetry and symmetry. Because if I just link one of my half symmetrical lines to another, the other side automatically does it. Same with symmetric patterns, right? If I link this to this, it automatically will link to the other side. When I change to one, it doesn't even need to link to the other side. What I do to one will automatically affect the other and change immediately. And I'll see all of those changes happen in real time, quickly and efficiently. I made a really, really big skirt. But you can see how helpful these are. But this is the biggest thing I will tell you. Never leave linking on. Always remember to unlink, because you won't always need everything linked. Something like here is nice to keep linked for a while, but don't forget to unlink it. You won't always need them linked together, so you can always unlink them. And life will be easier for you. You also, just so you know, this is a bit of an advanced one, but you can also link to an internal. So here I can select this, right click, link to this pattern outline. So when I adjust it, the internal line moves as well. So let's say I wanted to make this shorter. The internal line will move with it. Which is really important and really helpful. And then I can, of course, just unlink. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this really informative, and I hope all of you use at least the core linking, which is symmetry, with all of your projects. And when you're ready for it, you start using that linking line and the pattern to outline linking and all of that. It's really helpful, and it will really make it so that you can work faster, smarter, and easier. Thanks again so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this video. There's so many great videos on our YouTube channel, so check those out. And if you have any questions, use that comment section below. Thanks so much again.